I always forget. Okay, great. It's on now, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So basically, uh, if you look at it all the way from viral adoption to online advertising, the product is pretty much the driver of the sales process. Uh, uh, and if you look at long tail markets, so Chicky Chunk is an example of of a long tail market, which means Chicky Chunk does not talk directly to the users of their product, and these are people who already know what they need. They know that there's a good chance that the e-commerce platforms will provide them a easy way to order such products that they think they need, and then they go on the online platforms and search for these unique products, and they're called long tail marketing because they are not mainstream markets. Like black umbrellas are mainstream market because they solve a utilitarian need. People who want a fashion umbrella that also keeps them dry, that's a long tail market because not everybody, because people are not buying it for the utility value only, but they're mainly buying it for the fashion statement. So there are lots, basically e-commerce platforms have opened up the opportunity for long tail markets, and it's a great way for entrepreneurs to build up niche markets which can still make them excellent money. For example, I was talking to one entrepreneur. This guy found found some Chinese manufacturer who made sunglasses using bamboo frames, and he basically thought it would be a great idea to promote it on Amazon as sunglasses that are eco-friendly. So, there are some people, very few, but there are people who want an eco-friendly sunglass, for example. And he positioned his bamboo-framed sunglasses as a eco-friendly sunglass, and he purchases them for about $3, and he sells them for $80 in the US, and he's been selling about 1,000 of these every month, 1,000 to 2,000 of them every month, and he's happily making close to $250,000 a year, almost all of it profit, by targeting this long tail market. And there are thousands, if not millions, of long tail markets that are now enabled by these e-commerce platforms. And I think it's a phenomenal experience for all of you students who are aspiring entrepreneurs to at least find a few products, long tail products, and try your luck at long tail marketing, because the cost of doing long tail marketing is virtually nothing, and you'll get some tremendous experience and hopefully make some very good money with this long tail markets on e-commerce platforms. Anyway, so these most of these techniques, these six sales techniques, pretty much don't require selling because the product sells itself. Till we come to the last one, which is enterprise selling, which is B2B selling or B2B2C selling. And this is where This is the mainstream of sales for most businesses, and most businesses require salespeople and a sales process, either direct sales or indirect sales, and that is what we all need to learn. And the reason why this is important is because as an entrepreneur, you are selling all the time. Remember, you're not only just selling your products to customers, but you also have to sell your company to investors. That's also a sales process. You also have to sell your company to business partners. That's also selling. You also have to sell your company to your employees. That's also selling. So all of that is the last category, which is enterprise sales. And the skills needed to sell, whether it's your product to other businesses, whether it is your company to investors, whether it is your company to partners, or to employees, that all requires selling skills. So if you look at business customers, this is an easy way to kind of divvy up, organize your customers. So clearly, as a salesman, you'll first, you find that the users of the product have some influence in using your product. And then there are influencers, which is kind of the marketing department and other people. Then there are recommenders. Then there are the economic buyers, which might be the engineering department or the purchasing department or somebody like that. And then there's finally a decision maker. So selling in a B2B environment or in an enterprise sales situation is not a question of just selling to the person who's going to use your product or the person who's going to buy your product. There's actually a whole set of people who might be spread across different departments and have different expectations and different personalities and everything. And as a salesman, you've got to adapt to everybody that ultimately will purchase your product. So if you look at a salesman today, as the previous chart shows, he has to sell up, he has to sell down, he has to sell laterally in the organization, and he's got to do the sales not only in their own organization, but also their prospects organization and the partners organization. So the salesperson today has to do all kinds of selling, and the effective salesperson builds up a lot of different skills. And that's what we're going to study in this next 2-3 hours, which is how to do solution selling, how to do competitive selling, how to manage the entire long sales cycle, how to sell in a consultative fashion, how to sell when there are multiple buyers and stakeholders, how to do strategic selling to executives. So selling has a lot of different things that have to come together for the transaction to happen. Now, if you look at selling, this has been categorized into 7 styles, and depending on the maturity of the salesman and depending on where you're selling it in the company, etc., you have to have different kinds of skills in terms of selling. So basically, the entry-level sales guy is somebody that we call a teller. And this is the guy who can only describe the product features. So, for example, whenever you have a product to sell, one of the people that you hire is called telesales. So telesales are people that you bring in, and they can be hired for quite cheap In fact, right now in the US, it's become very common for entrepreneurs, for US companies to actually outsource telesales to companies in India and Philippines. And these telesales people basically make phone calls, and these phone numbers have been purchased, these phone lists have been purchased, and then they just, as soon as they make the phone call, they start describing the product, uh, to whoever picks up the phone call. And if the person is interested, he will listen. If he's not interested, he'll just hang up the phone. So these guys have to make 50 phone calls in order to get maybe one, maybe two people who are going to actually have a conversation with them. So it's a very frustrating job, but since you're only paying pretty much minimum wages to these telesales people, and you in fact even outsource it, basically it is a good way to generate a whole list of prospects. So once telesales has gone ahead and done the prospecting and identified, a whole bunch of potential people who are willing to, who are interested in this kind of a product, the deal is turned over to sellers. And the seller, once he comes in, he sells product benefits. So when somebody says, hey, I'm interested in a CRM system, then basically the seller comes in and says, look, with my CRM system, you can, I have a SaaS model, so you don't have to buy the whole product up front. Like if you bought it from SAP or from Oracle, you can just use my product and pay for it on a monthly basis. And if you've got 8 people selling, then you'll basically pay a monthly fee for 8 people. So there is very low cost of entry. Then my CRM has got, a contact management system. So automatically, some benefit will happen. So basically they sell product benefits. And then we move on to hunters. So hunters are those who can defeat the competition. And for example, if you find that a customer has a need, like a telecom company needs to buy a configuration product, essentially, there are about 5 or 6 different vendors of configuration products, people who have got a bundle configurator like SAP and Oracle. Then there are people who have got standalone configurators like Selectica or Calico or Trilogy or a whole bunch of other companies, about half a dozen such companies. So these hunters use competitive selling strategy in order to beat the competition. And they can find they basically will make a get competitive analysis of the competition's product, figure out why those bugs that are there in the competition are going to be a very expensive problem for the customer, find out the price at which the customer is willing to buy, and then, kind of win on a price benefit basis. So hunters do competitive strategy. Then farmers are those who proactively sell within an existing customer. So, hey, if you have sold your CRM product to one division in a big conglomerate, then this farmer will get there, figure out who's the decision maker in the other different divisions, and then, try to get the same CRM product bought in by other divisions. Then you have business developer who can create demand and be a rainmaker. So these people actually can figure out, even though there was no need initially, they can go ahead and create the demand, and then they can solve the problem, and then they can create great business. So For example, when Dropbox had to compete with Apple and Google, what Apple was going to offer cloud storage for people who bought iPhone. Then what Dropbox did was they went to Apple's competitor, Samsung, and convinced Samsung to go ahead and pre-install Dropbox on the Samsung Android phones. And that's how, all of a sudden, where Dropbox initially did not have any easy way to get sales in Android phones and would probably get 5% market share, suddenly at 100% market share, and they started growing their customer base by 30 million users every quarter, because that was the rate at which Samsung was selling smartphones. So a business developer can create demand and be a rainmaker. Then you got partners who create a collaborative buy-sell situation. And so, for example, like when Opti was selling chipsets, our partners were BIOS vendors like AMI and Phoenix Technologies. And whenever we sold a chipset, automatically AMI and Phoenix got BIOS sales with them, right? So partners automatically help you sell product. And then you got something called INCs, or Industry Network Consultants. And these guys have got relationships at the highest levels, because they are kind of trusted advisors everywhere to these big corporations. And if you have the help of these INCs, you can sell top down. So demand is created basically in this process, which is to create a vision of a solution and then explain the consequences of no action. And this gap is such that it's going to motivate the buyer to buy the product. And I'll tell you a very interesting example of demand creation. So, I was flying from Paris back to San Francisco, and this was during our IPO cycle. So when I was flying from Paris to San Francisco, what happened was that, I was traveling by first class, since that's what, these investment bankers pay for. And because they make so much money from an IPO, so they buy first class tickets for you. So I was traveling by first class, and when I sat down, some gentleman came and sat down next to me, and he was, going through these documents, and I looked over and saw what he was reading, and I find that he was reading the financial documents for Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton is the world's largest luxury goods provider, right? So Louis Vuitton sells all these handbags and clothes and all these luxury products, liquor and all that stuff. And this guy was the CEO of a $5 billion or $10 billion company. And he's sitting right next to me, and he's there. He's going to be sitting next to me for the next 12 hours. And I said, okay, I'm sitting next to the CEO of Louis Vuitton for 12 hours. And, so, what happened was that what happened was that, we had dinner, he had dinner, I had dinner. And then just I was ready to kind of open a conversation with him. He just, shuts the thing that he's reading, and then decides to go to sleep. So I said, oh my God, I hope he doesn't sleep all the way to San Francisco. I've lost my opportunity. So I also slept, but I kept one eye open while sleeping. And after about 4 hours, he got up, and he was just trying to figure out to watch a movie or things like that. And so I also stretched and woke up, and then I said, I saw that you were looking through some Louis Vuitton documents. Um, how, how is Louis Vuitton going to succeed in the internet market, in the internet-driven environment? I mean, is internet affecting how luxury products are going to be sold? So we started talking, and then I said, Selectica is kind of the leader in internet selling. And we have customers like Dell and Cisco and all these companies that are the gurus of internet selling. And we have the right solution for providing internet selling. And he got very interested, and for the next 3 hours we talked about how Louis Vuitton could become a leader in internet selling by launching a sales application on the website with the online catalog and everything, using the Selectica configurator. And as soon as we landed, we also agreed on the price that they were going to pay, which was $4 million. And as soon as I landed, I told my salesman, call on Louis Vuitton's IT department and tell them that we've talked to the CEO, and the CEO has authorized the purchase of a Selectica configurator for $4 million. And so when the salesman went to the CIO of Louis Vuitton, my salesman went, that guy said, what's a configurator? Who are you? I've never heard of this. And then I said, just give the telephone number, tell them to call the CEO. And as soon as the CIO called the CEO says, yes, just go ahead and purchase it. You've got to become the leader in e-commerce business. And so in less than 3 days, we received a $4 million order for a sales configurator for Louis Vuitton LVMH. And so you can see how demand can be created by creating a vision of a solution, and then by communicating the consequences of not doing anything, executing on that vision. So clearly you have to communicate two things: the vision if they don't do it, and the vision if they do it, right? And communicate why they should do such things. So that was kind of a fun example of how just by getting having a high level CEO to CEO conversation, you can do some amazing business, because you can create demand at a very high level and execute it. So as an entrepreneur, you must become the first salesperson in your company. This is extremely important to understand, that as soon as your product is ready, you can't say, okay, I'm going to hire a sales guy, because that will be the first mistake that you'll make, and that'll probably be the mistake that's going to result in your company going under or failing. So the founder must be the first salesperson, because the founder is the one who's most credible and who really needs to understand the sales process, because only if he understands the sales process will he be able to hire the right kind of salespeople. So salespeople, as they say here, are the hardest to hire but easiest to fire. What he means is that good salespeople, because almost every good salesperson, it's easy for him to sell himself to you because you're not a trained sales executive. So, he's going to sell himself to you. So you're going to hire him, but you're going to hire the wrong person. And this becomes a very, very expensive thing for any organization. So let me explain why it's easy to hire the wrong type of salesperson. So there are two kinds of salespeople: gladiators and professional salespeople. So gladiators are solo hunters, which is, they basically understand your product, understand the target customers for your product, and then they go ahead and do everything themselves. And they finally come back having sold the product, but sometimes they might sell what you don't have, and then they will ask for forgiveness, not approval. But, gladiators are very self-motivated, self-driven people. And they are there in every industry. And if you can, at the early stage, every startup needs to hire gladiators. Let me give you an example. So, when I started Selectica, I told you that I had no idea about, the CIOs and IT departments and how to sell to them and everything like that. So, I was trying to do marketing approaches to selling rather than sales approach, one-on-one selling. So not very successful for one whole year. And then we hired this VP of sales from our competitor Calico. And, basically, we were trying to sell the product for $20,000, $25,000. And he came and said, look, $25,000, my commission is 10%. So he said that, I'll get $2,500 commission on a sale. And at $2,500 commission, I cannot pay my rent. I cannot even afford to live for $2,500 a month. And I cannot get more than, one or two customers per month. So we need to sell this product for $250,000. So every time I sell the product, I can make $25,000. And if I sell two of these products a month, I can make $50,000. And I said, I've not been successful selling the product at $25,000. If you can sell this product at $250,000, great. Go and do it. I don't, that'll be awesome. And, for the guys that then, basically, prepared his own PowerPoint presentation about the product. And we were about, 2.5 years old at that point. And then he took off. And he went off to Dallas, and then he went off to some other states in the US. And then after 2 weeks, he comes back and he puts on my desk 3 purchase orders for $250,000 each. Kind of blew my mind. It was like crazy because, since he had been at Calico, he knew that who to sell to. He knew what the price would be. He knew how to position the product. And these people, trusted him. And because of his reputation as being Calico's sales guy, and he started He brought 3 orders for $750,000. And I just fell off my chair. I said, this is crazy. But that was it. And I can tell you that, boom, essentially, Selectica got started once we got these 3 orders. Because, these 3 orders from telecom customers started, giving us the features and everything that we needed to get the deal done. And then you got the Gladiator type of person, but these guys are unmanageable, which means, they'll sell stuff that you don't have and so on. So then you have your professional salespeople, and these are people that take orders. So you tell them that, we want to go ahead and sell to, we've got orders, we have got products that we've sold to 2 or 3 telecom companies. There are 50 telecom companies in the US. Go ahead and sell to these guys. And boom, 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 they will knock off these orders and they will sell it. So basically, during the early stages, when you don't know who to sell the product to, you need gladiators. And during the late stages, you replace them or you keep them for new market segments, but you hire in a whole bunch of professional sales guys for different regions, for Europe, for Far East, for Midwest, for East Coast, for Southeast, for West Coast, for Northeast, for Canada, for South America. You hire these kinds of people, professional sales people, who can take orders and deliver this product. And their job is to tell prospects about the benefits of the product. And if they find people who listen to them, and if you find people who ask questions and they listen, and then they just tell you how to sell them. So basically, the whole goal for an entrepreneur is to create a process for repeatable sales. Don't hire too soon. In the beginning, you've got to find those gladiators, because these professional salespeople will not be able to make any sales for you. So you bring in these gladiators, get them to make the sales, and then you participate in the sales process, and then you go ahead and come up with a repeatable sales process that will go ahead and make you succeed. Okay, so that's a very first level presentation on selling the whole sales process. Okay, so any questions about, how sales is done and how you build your organization, how you hire people, how you get going? And for different kinds of companies, of course, some cases you may not have salespeople at all. Some cases you may have distributors, but and in some cases there might be just while selling and all that. So any questions on sales? Yes.
Raj.
Yeah.
This is Aditya from Nagpur.
Yes, Aditya.
It's been very difficult to choose a gladiator. Is it that important that the gladiator should be aggressive seller, or should have good rapport in market? Which should be the first priority given to a gladiator?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So basically, gladiators are not aggressive people, actually. Gladiators are super smart hunters. We call them big game hunters. So big game hunters, which is like, I don't know if any of you have been on a safari or watched any show about the big game hunting. by, by lions and by, they all kind of do a lot of strategizing and planning and things like that in order to hunt. And that's what gladiators do, which is they basically know how to track down the potential customer, and then they know how to go through the selling cycle, which is what we're going to learn next, in order to go ahead and transact the big deal for your company, right? So gladiators are typically people who are already there in the industry, and they will typically come from your competitor or some other big partner in that same industry that you are in. And when you go ahead and recruit these guys, what you have to look at is, what is their personality? How do they do selling? When you interact with them during the interview process, you have to go ahead and figure out if they are comfortable selling products that are new products to new customers. So, if you have a professional salesperson, he's typically comfortable only selling existing products to existing customers. And he'll be a part of a sales organization and so on. But he won't be somebody who will have joined a new division in a big company, or who will have worked with a startup in order to make the transaction happen and so on. So he's not somebody who can create and make business happen. So, so that is the kind of difference between a gladiator and a professional sales guy. Yeah. Any other questions? Mumbai? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Now, I have never been in sales, but during my career, I have traveled with sales and visited customers as a technical expert. And what you said just now is exactly fitting my experiences. I had a question that going forward from here, do you see a disruption in the way of the selling process to enterprises? Like, the shops give away to e-commerce at a retail level. Is a similar thing happening or going to happen, or you perceive it will happen in the enterprise segment as well?
Yeah, and I think the answer is that, for B2B selling, it's probably not going to change, because the selling process is actually a very well understood process. And we are going to discuss that with the very next slide. And it is something that every one of you needs to master. Because remember, you are the first salesman in your own companies. So we are going to go through the selling process, and so that never changes. And the selling process takes a lot of maturity in a human being. And in fact, the best salespeople are actually some of the most smartest people in terms of interpersonal skills and in terms of human skills. And because they know how to earn or win the confidence of people so that they trust them, and then they're willing to transact with them. Because remember, every time somebody buys your product, especially in a big company, they are putting their own reputation at risk when they choose your product. And so, there's a lot of trust involved in the sales cycle. And that selling cycle is not going to change, because selling is an integral part of almost all the major transactions that will happen in your company, whether it is selling your equity, or hiring a big name super engineer, or a very key marketeer, or making a deal with the business partner like a business developer. So all of these require selling, and that is a super important skill. Yes.
You totally on that. The
Yeah.
question was more about crunching the cycles with the use of advanced technology, video conferencing, and whatnot. After the initial trust is built up, the relationship. Do you think now salespeople will travel as frequently as they did 10 or 20 years ago? And will the selling cycles in enterprises be crunched from a year or 9 months to 3 months or 6 months?
Yeah. That's a good point. I think, like, there's many different dynamics that happen in every industry, and obviously these days everybody is so technically savvy, right? So like previously, like, in order to explain anything, we had to send an apps engineer over to kind of organize and set up things, and especially during the technical part of the sales. And now we can do that all on video conference and so on. So you can see that the selling process is evolving with the adoption of new technologies and new capabilities across the industries and everything. But there are many parts of selling which are people oriented, and the people oriented stuff will not change. And we'll discuss what portion of the selling cycle are people oriented, and why that is something that has to be mastered by every entrepreneur, right? And that's what we are going to focus on. Yes.
Raj, this is Kitiraj from Thai Nagpur.
Yes.
My question was like how to position an IT product, like say the personal website CMS portal which we are working on right now, by demand creation even after doing the gap analysis if there is low acceptance in the market.
Yeah. So remember that low acceptance can have two explanations. One is that you haven't got your product to fit the needs properly, right? So that's a marketing product management job, which is market fit for your product. And the second could be that you are being outsold by the competition.
Okay.
Right? And you either not gone ahead and evangelize the need, or you have not gone ahead and been able to beat the competition in selling your product. So you could have a problem on either side, the product side or the sales side. And it's your job to go ahead and actually, I tell every startup that I advise, which is that the CEO of the company needs to visit their customers personally. Even if there are salespeople involved, he needs to participate in sales meetings as frequently as possible, because that's the only place that the customer is going to get a feedback. The entrepreneur is going to get feedback as to what needs to be done.
And sir, if we want to like position it into like educational institutions and kind of thing, say engineering colleges, finally engineering colleges in Kerala, there's one college which is completely online. All the students of that college have participated in like making themselves online, like personal portals. So
Okay.
like how to it on a global scale, like in India, if you want to like pitch it all across India, to make it a standard kind of thing, to have personal portals rather than using normal resumes, which will be a like normal thing after 2017. But if we start it early, it will be a benefit for us because we will be monopoly in that kind of situation. So like how to pitch it properly.
Yeah, so basically, if you're entering a market early, then you're taking on the responsibility of evangelizing, right? of going ahead and having, and kind of selling the vision first.
Yeah.
And so you're selling the vision, and you have to basically use basically luminaries and other people who are respected in the educational field, like the dean of different schools, who can be referenced or who can kind of articulate the need for your product, right? So you basically need to get luminaries and respected people in your industry to kind of talk about the fact that the industry needs to adopt some new trends and so on. It's a evangelization process.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Mumbai.
Just wanted to check, whenever you're selling any technology product, obviously you will keep track of competition. Are there any, triggers or guideposts on how to actually look at some triggers where disruption can come from?
How to look at what?
Is there any way, because when you sell a technology product,
Yes,
as a normal sales process, you will map competition, you will have, critics of the existing setup.
yeah.
But in the world, when there is a lot of disruption that comes from, from a variety of point of view, are there any triggers or any guideposts, that people should keep in mind to sense where disruption can come from?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good point, which is, entrepreneurs should always be on the lookout for disruptions coming into the industry. Because whenever a disruption comes, there's an opportunity for an entrepreneur to get in with an innovative product. Because till there is disruption in an industry, only the existing suppliers in that industry will keep getting the repeat business. Because there is a lot of inertia in the whole organization to start doing business with a new vendor. Because every time a new vendor comes in, new kind of relationships have to happen, new kind of qualification, the sales process, everything changes. So basically, it's a lot of inertia is there to letting in new vendors to come into any market. So, very good opportunity for entrepreneurs opens up every time there's a disruption, because whenever there's a disruption, there'll always be a few companies that are going to be late, that are going to be slow to adopt or accept the disruption. For example, the biggest disruption that happened for me was when the internet came along, right? When the internet came along about 15, 20 years ago, that was a massive disruption because, basically everybody realized that the traditional way of doing things is going to change. Like the music industry changed, the entertainment industry changed, the way books were used was changed, the way buying and selling was changed, education changed, how products are developed changed, outsourcing and support changed. So everything in the whole world, so many industries were disrupted. And that was a golden opportunity for entrepreneurs to start companies and get established. And guess what? Google got established, and so many companies got established in all kinds of different market segments of because of the internet disruption. So the question is like how to anticipate disruption in your industry, right? And I would say that the way to anticipate disruption in your industry, if it's a technology kind of industry business you are in, it's extremely easy. All you have to do is look at what's happening in technologically advanced countries. So typically, the first change or disruption happens in the US. And even in the US, the change will actually first happen in fast moving and fast adopting technology areas such as, California or Silicon Valley or Boston and so on. And from there, it'll go to second stage markets, and from there it'll go to third stage, and then it'll go all over the US, and from the US it'll go to Europe, from Europe and from US it'll go to China, Far East, and then all the way to India, and from India it'll go to Africa and so on. So there is a technology disruption adoption of sequence, and all you need to do is look at what's going on. And with the help of internet today, it's so easy for you to keep track of whatever's going on in any product area, in any technology area, in any market, all over the world, right? For example, let's take a look at Uber and Airbnb, right? So Uber disrupted the taxi business. Now, Uber, they could have started in Dallas, or they could have started anywhere. Wherever there are taxis, they could have gone there. But guess what? They decided that they were first going to try it out in San Francisco. And the reason to try it out in San Francisco is because in San Francisco, there is a large number of people who are ready to try new things. They are early adopters. And basically Uber, once they launched it, they found a lot of early adopters in San Francisco. And once San Francisco, the economics started working out and they could optimize the software, then they took it to Los Angeles. From Los Angeles, they took it to New York City. From New York City, so one by one, they went ahead and had their technology permeate through the US, and from US they went to different countries one after the other, and now they are trying to crack India, right? So that's Uber. Airbnb, same story. For almost all technology, it's so easy to go ahead and keep your eye on what's going on. For example, if you look at some of the biggest names in India right now, in the IT industry. So, for example, you got Naukri.com, you got Shadi.com, you got who's that? India. What is that stock trading company? India Bulls. All of these companies, essentially can be mapped one by one into US companies, right? Flipkart mapped into Amazon. Baidu in China mapped into the equivalent, Monster.com. So it's like every company so every company has the disruption caused by the company, and the successful disruptions have a way of permeating the whole global economy step by step. And for an entrepreneur, the easiest way is to figure out which one is working in the early adopter markets, and then you go ahead and adapt that disruptive solution to your market, because it's going to get there. Because but it's always a matter of timing. So for example, for Uber to work, smartphones needed to be very common. Without smartphones, Uber doesn't work. So Uber needed to had to wait till smartphones had 60, 70, 80% market penetration before before they can disrupt the taxi market. So if you look at India or Mumbai, basically smartphone penetration is probably around 15, 20%, right? Is it more than that right now? Smartphone penetration, is it more than 15, 20% right now in India? Anybody?
Yes, more than 30%.
Huh? How much?
More than 30.
More than 30.
Oh, more than 30%. Okay, but I think
in Mumbai it would be more, of course. Yeah.
Mostly rural and urban.
Are you sure in Mumbai it's already more than 30%?
So in Mumbai it would be more. We don't know the exact figures, but
Whole population.
it would be
Yeah, but by
Divide urban alag rahega.
50 to 60% at least.
okay, but 50 to 60% will be in the kind of middle class to upper class, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Not in the lower class. The lower class is probably still on the cheaper phones, right? So the 2,000 rupee phone. So I would say that the car and the taxi industry, a big portion of the taxi industry, Ola and taxi for hire and Uber will probably start impacting probably in the next year or two, once the smartphone penetration hits 50 to 60%. See, in Bangalore, which is an early adopter, Uber and Ola all become very successful. Meru have become already very successful, right? So even in India, there is a disruption goes in a certain pattern. So you basically have, but for the Uber equivalent to start penetrating the auto rickshaw market, the lower end auto rickshaw market, even the auto rickshaw market will be disrupted by Uber on demand, shared economy, probably in the next 3 to 5 years. So if any of the entrepreneurs, I'm sure there is some entrepreneur or the other who's already thinking of how to disrupt the auto rickshaw business, right? And how to disrupt kind of the personal transportation business.
Ola is already having rickshaws.
Yeah, so there you can see that Ola is already trying to penetrate, but I won't be surprised if there'll be a new entrepreneur who'll come along with some innovative new way of disrupting the low end of the travel industry in India.
Yeah, there is one named Nirmal Kumar, started at Gujarat, Ahmedabad.
Okay.
G Auto is almost 3 or 4 year old company. It is mostly but acting on a not for profit model.
Yeah, I think in the beginning it will be like that, but don't be surprised if it becomes very profitable because of the number of auto rickshaws that are there in India, right?
Yeah.
And the amount of travel and money spent on auto rickshaws on a cumulative basis is huge. So at some point, even a small 3%, 5% profit will become like a tsunami, right?
There's one more thing, like Uber is having like 4 rupees per kilometer kind of thing, and Jugnu Auto is having 3 rupees per kilometer.
Wow. Okay. So
Jugnu
there are already many different competitions are coming along. Competitive solutions are coming along. No, but there's a lot of innovation that's going to happen there, right? So because what's happening is that uh, you know uh, because of Uber and things like that, you have something called the shared economy that has started off, right? In the US, they have something called Zipcar. So with Zipcar, you can basically rent a car and just pick it up and drop it off, right? The car is just sitting there and they give you a special code to enter the car, drive it, and then drop it off. So basically, with the shared economy, all kinds of new business models will become viable, and then one or two business models will just take over the whole market. Go ahead.
Raj, just for your information, a similar product has been launched in Bangalore by two Americans, I think, or Europeans, I don't remember, which is called Zoom Car, which is again the same stuff. I mean, rent a car on the mobile.
Right, exactly. So people, you can see that disruption from smartphones, new business models, shared economy. All of this is flows into the global economy in a certain way. And for an entrepreneur, that once you understand this whole entrepreneurship stuff, you can look for markets to get into quite nicely. Okay, let's now talk about the actual selling process, and this is actually the most important thing in this whole class, in my opinion, because you'll need to master this to apply it everywhere. Okay, so let me share. So basically, this is just a one-page presentation, a one-page chart, which summarizes the entire selling process in one chart. That's why I really like this one chart. It's called the sales diamond, and every transaction that you do, whether it's in selling a product, selling a service, doing a business-to-business relationship, or doing capitalization, or which is raising money, for all of them, you need to follow this sales diamond process. So basically, let me quickly go through the sales diamond, which is sitting in the middle, right? The number one is relationship. Number two is process. Number three is value. Number four is options. And then finally, number five is economic logic. So every sales process, whenever you get involved in a sales process, you have to remember that all 5 steps have to be done. And they have to be done in the right sequence. And you cannot go from one step to the next step before you have successfully executed that particular step. So for example, the first step is relationship, which is building trust. And I think Yashwant talked about the fact that, trust. So the first step is all about establishing trust. And in trust, and only once trust is established, you can move to the process, which is where you, in a discussion, where you figure out basically what are the needs of the customer. And once the needs of the customer are done and agreed upon, you move to the next step, which is the value, which is how does the customer's need get satisfied by your proposed solution so that the customer gets the best value for solving his needs in the right way. And then from there, you go to options, which is where you figure out, you know, is this the best deal that that the customer can get for whatever his needs are. So this is where you negotiate the right solution. And finally, you have the economic logic, which is where you get paid for the value that you're delivering, which is the price, you know, that you charge the customer for the service or the product that you're going to offer. So basically, you have to go through this 5-step process in order to transact any sales deal. It can be selling a product, selling a service, selling a business, or selling equity, or selling stock. So for all these processes, you need to go through this. The number one mistake that junior salespeople make is they quickly jump. They bypass step 1 and step 2 and go straight to selling the value without even knowing whether the customer trusts you enough to buy a product, or whether even understanding the customer's needs. They begin selling the value of their product. So, you know, they are just selling blindly. It's called blind selling. And, you know, they are typically disappointed when the customer won't buy the product. So basically, that is the number one mistake that junior salespeople make. I've seen entrepreneurs make when they're trying to raise money. So I've seen when entrepreneurs try to raise money, when they meet a venture capitalist, the first thing that they do is they start talking about this fantastic idea that they've got, and they start talking about the fantastic product that they're designing and they're going to design, and why this product is the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? So basically, entrepreneurs, and these days I meet dozens of entrepreneurs, and the first thing they talk about is their product. So they have not established any trust with me or with the investor, and they don't know if the investor has got any money to invest, whether he's interested in this particular market business area, whether he's interested in this particular kind of a deal, and you've already started selling your product. So that is the first mistake that basically a person who's inexperienced in selling makes. So when you go through this 5-phase cycle, you find that, you know, you can go through each of the steps as quickly as you want, or you might have to take a very long time. So for example, you know, if you've been doing business with a particular customer for a long time, you already basically have the trust. But in spite of that, you have to first reconfirm that the trust is there, because in the meantime, things might have changed. A competitor might have come in to disrupt your trust, or their or they may be upset about something or the other because the previous product that was sold to them did not work very well. Or so many things could have changed. So you have to reestablish whether trust still exists between the two parties, right? So as soon as you meet, the first thing is to go ahead and talk nicely, shake hands, welcome them, and then be sure that the trust is there before you go ahead and start asking questions. Only if the other side feels that you understand the problem, that, hey, we've been doing business for a long time, and I hope you're very happy with everything that we have done for you. So you open up with a question like that. We have, hey, I wanted to tell you a little bit about, what's going on, and I want to know how your business is doing, and how satisfied you are with the previous products we have sold and the business that we have done. Has that been very good for you? So you establish trust by having that kind of a discussion. Once the customer says yes, they are very happy with the previous business that they have done, but they've got some new needs that have come up. Now you're ready to move from the trust phase to the process phase. So when they basically are ready to start sharing with you what their new needs are, new problems are, new issues are, now your job is to ask questions, not to propose answers. You should just keep asking questions. And the questions are like DAWN is for dollars, authority, willingness, need. So you got to find out what is the budget that they've got. Like, is this a big problem they're trying to solve, like a multi-million-dollar problem solve, or are they trying to solve a problem that is in the $1,000 level or $10,000 level? Is this something? If it's $1 million problem, then who's going to require to approve this? How much time is there to solve the problem? What is the impact on their business if they spend $1 million buying this product or service from you? Will the impact on the business be 10 times as much, 100 times as much? So how big is the opportunity or the need for them? So who else is going to be involved with this, with making this decision? So there's a whole process. The process is where the salesman is asking questions in order to understand all the dimensions of the business opportunity. They understand, what is the scope, what is the dimensions of the business opportunity, and what is the process that needs to be followed in order for this business transaction to go through. So once all the questions are answered, then you say, it's wonderful. So you summarize for them. Okay, so it looks like you need to solve this problem over the next 9 months. You have a budget of about $1 million, and we will need to get the engineering department, the customer service department, and the manufacturing department to approve it. And we will need to go ahead and have these kinds of quality assurance testing done, and we will have to do this kind of a pilot. We'll have to write this kind of a proposal. This proposal will need to be approved by the CFO or the CIO or the CEO. So you summarize after listening for 5, 10, 15, 20, 1 hour, 30 minutes, whatever the amount of time it makes sense to listen, and then you summarize as a salesman as to what the customer's process is. And the customer says, no. On this particular thing, we will first have to not only get the director of engineering to approve it, but we are also going to need the salespeople who are going to use this product to approve it. So basically say, oh, okay. So for authority, you say that we're going to have to add these other people who are also going to approve it. And so once you've summarized what their problem is and the scope and the dimension of everything, now you're ready to sell. Say, hey, can I give you some approaches to solving this? And now you've got 3 different approaches to selling this. One, you can do solution selling, or you can do consultative selling, or you can do value selling. So when you're doing solution selling, obviously you're trying to solve the problem, which is, if we go ahead and get these subsystems from my company, then we will integrate it in with some additional products from these companies, and then we are going to get Infosys to do some IT services in order to integrate this hardware software, and then we will put some maintenance engineers, and then it'll all be done, and then we will first do a pilot and then get the performance track down, and so you solution sell, which will meet. And so out of this $1 million, our portion of the system is going to cost $600,000. We'll have to spend $200,000 with Infosys, and then we're going to spend $100,000 with them, and then we're going to do $100,000 of quality and testing, and that's where within your $1 million budget we should be able to solve your problem. So that's called solution selling. Or you can do consultative selling, which is you go ahead and say you said it's $1 million that you're going to make. You're going to get $10 million of impact or revenue by in doing this $1 million project or benefit. But let me put my consulting engineers to come and evaluate this, because we have solved a similar problem at other automotive companies or other insurance companies, and we can actually show you how you can actually get $100 million business, but by spending $8 million and doing a solution, putting in a project where we increase the scope from $1 million to $8 million, but by doing that, you are going to get $100 million value for your business. So with consultative selling, you basically become expert in this particular business, position yourself as a consultant, and then you actually can get the customer to do a project that he had not even thought. He thought he had $1 million problem, but now you are setting him up to do a $10 million project. And then value selling is where you basically convince the customer that the value that he gets by using your product is worth a lot more than the competition's value. So you basically convince him that the quality standards or the performance or whatever that you get by using Intel microprocessors and the reputation you get with Intel microprocessors is going to help him sell his PCs, laptops, or whatever for a slight higher price. So you value sell your product. So when Intel sells microprocessors against AMD, they value sell the Intel reputation. Even though both products can basically have the same performance, the reputation of the Intel brand name is why the customer should give the order to you. So so when you're selling value, you got to see that, price does not trump the other interests, which is, a lot of people and customers in particular get hung up on price, especially if it's a purchasing guy. And your job when you're selling value is to show that, yes, you want $82 price, but remember, by buying it for $95 from my company, you're going to get maintenance, you're going to get branding, you're going to get support, you're going to get all of these other benefits. So don't get so hung up on price, right? So that's how you sell value. And you basically, through the process, the Dawn process, you've already understood their need really well. So you sell your value based on their process. So if it is a commodity PC manufacturer, then there's no point trying to sell brand name and so on, because all they care about is price. So you don't waste your time selling branding when the value for them is production. So basically, instead of selling value of branding, you can say that, look, we are going to give you guaranteed delivery. We are going to allow you to do volume purchase. You can buy 12 months. If you give me a 12-month order instead of a 1-month order, I'm going to give you a 10% discount because you're giving me a 12-month orders at one shot. So if he's a commodity vendor, you can leverage, you can try to get some other benefit from, selling. So basically, that's how you do value selling once you've established trust and once you've encapsulated the need that the customer has got. Once you've done all of that, then you go and discuss options, which is, BATNA is, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or it is basically what is it? So I forgot. So basically, like, you basically negotiate, why the deal or the value that you're proposing is the optimum solution for this customer, in contrast to, any other competitor. So you discuss all the different options that are available, and then you work out all the differences that the customer might have. So if the customer says, look, the competition for the same need, he's offering the product for 10% less than you, and you have to go ahead and negotiate, and that's something that we'll do in next class. No, the class after next, we're going to work on negotiations to see how negotiations are done in order to handle objections from the customer or from the other party. Once all of that is done, you got to put a document up back confirming the entire transaction and the economic logic to the customer, so that they know that they are getting that you are getting paid for the value that was delivered at the price that you wanted, right? So you have to put it all together so that the business makes full logical sense to both sides. So this particular 5-step process is something that each of you needs to master, and it should. And when you master it, it's not just just these points, but each of these points have to be communicated in a conversational style. And that conversational style will vary when you're talking to Indians, when you're talking to Gujarati customers versus talking to Punjabi customers, talking to Bengali customers, talking to South Indian customers or to Maharashtrian customers. So, so basically, you know, all kinds of other things come into the picture, but because all of these points have to be communicated in the context of an interpersonal discussion, right? So you're discussing the trust thing, establishing, asking the questions to understand the customer need, communicating the value, discussing what the different options are and why, which one is the best option for the customer. And then, you know, making sure that the customer understands the economic logic so he doesn't change his mind the minute you walk out of the meeting. So this 5-step process has to be communicated in a personal interaction. And, you know, if your customer is a female CIO, or if it's a female salesman selling to a male CIO or to a male purchasing guy, if it is a Gujarati guy selling to Maharashtrian, or Gujarati guy selling to North Indian or South Indian, or a Maharashtrian selling to South Indian, everything changes. You know, how you discuss how do you establish trust? How do you ask the questions? How do you communicate the value? All of that changes depending on, you know, the people on either side of the table. And, you know, whether it's one person on the other side of the table, or the 3 people on their side and 3 people on your side, all of that affects the dynamics of each of the steps, each of these 5 steps that you will go through in 1 hour or 3 hours or 3 days or 3 months. But this process has to be gone through if any transaction is going to result in a win-win business transaction. So I've communicated a lot here. So now the key is to apply this stuff. Okay, so the key is to apply what I've said to every sales transaction that you're involved with. And remember, probably one of the first sales transaction you're going to be involved with is raising money from whether it's raising money from your parents, from your friends, from angel investors, from whoever. It's the first sales transaction that you're going to do. And if you don't follow this process, you won't basically get off in the right way to succeed. Okay, questions? Yeah.
Yeah, this is Ujjwal from Tag.
Yes,
so
sir.
when you establish relationship with ongoing customer and the CIO changes, he probably would bring his own set of suppliers and all, and the whole equation changes. Again, the building trust and all. So this I've observed in the entire career. So it becomes very difficult with the new person coming in, and the whole equation has again to be reestablished. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, this is probably one of the most common problems that happens for a sales guy, which is, you know, he's been doing business for 5 years with the purchasing guy or the CIO or the director of engineering, and then suddenly the CIO leaves your company and goes somewhere else, or a new IT director of engineering comes in. Happens all the time. And a good salesperson has to realize that he cannot jump to step number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, because by assuming that the new CIO or the new director of engineering or the new purchasing guy still trusts him, right? Because as you said, he may have his own set of relationships that he trusts. So as a sales guy, you have to start the discussion back at the trust level. So where previously your trust portion of your 1-hour meeting would be over in 3 minutes, right? Because you already know each other. You say, hey, how are things going? The guy says, it's going fine. Is everybody happy with that product that I'd sold you? Any questions? Boom, in 3 minutes, it's done. In 3 minutes, you're ready to say, okay, what's your next project? What's the new thing you want? What's the new need you got? In 3 minutes, you're done. And now you got your new purchasing guy has come in, or the new director of engineering has come in, and you say, how's it going? And he's going to say, what product are you talking about? Which project are you talking about? You're from Intel, but at my previous company, I was using AMD for my microprocessors and to build PCs, and Intel was always 30% too expensive for us, and I always used AMD. But now Dell Computers, who's a long-term Intel user, has hired him as director of engineering. But he came from Gateway, which was a big AMD PC manufacturer, right? So all of a sudden, but Dell hired him because he used to make very good PCs, which were very successful in the marketplace. So Dell said, hey, you come and run my engineering department. So you walk in, you're the Intel sales guy, and the guy says, I like AMD. They treated me well. Their products, are 30% cheaper. Why should I use your product? And, you don't have any trust. So he's not going to tell you about the next PC that they're going to design. He's not going to tell you about, what the time frame is for the project. What is the performance spec of the new PC? What feature sets are required, when its samples are required. He's not going to give you any of the data that you're going to need to plan on getting your new Intel microprocessor designed in. Without that, how are you going to communicate the value, right? So the Intel sales guy has to go back to trust. He's got to say, nice to meet you, Mr. Smith, but I've been working here with this particular Dell department for 4 years. We've designed 3 generations of PCs. Each of these PCs have had phenomenal success for Dell computers, and even Michael Dell awarded Intel the award for being the best vendor last year, and we've got a long-term exclusive partnership that has worked out beautifully for both, because not only do we provide the microprocessor, but we provide advanced information. We give you direct connection with our engineers to discuss the feature requirements of the 2 generations or the future generations of products so that they meet Dell computer vision. So we have a relationship that transcends this one PC that you're going to design. So the guy who's who's had experience with AMD sits back and says, I've got this new job, but if I should probably build a trusting relationship with this Intel sales guy, because this whole Dell Computers has had a very successful relationship, and the CEO of Dell Computers has a relationship with the CEO of Intel, and they've been given the vendor of choice. And for me to design an AMD product can potentially result in me being terminated as the director of engineering. You can see what's happening. So all of a sudden, in this trust, and then obviously he doesn't say that you're going to be terminated because I'm going to attack you, but the threat is there, but you don't say it. But the Intel sales guy can say, hey, we've got a technology review discussion of meeting happening at Intel in 2 weeks, and I'd love to invite you to participate in that discussion, and where there'll be directors of engineering from IBM and Microsoft and so on. And all of a sudden, this guy feels, there is a lot of value to having a trusting relationship with this Intel sales guy. So you can see how, and now out of 1 hour meeting, the Intel sales guy has spent almost 45 minutes rebuilding the trust. And you see the reason to do it, right? If that trust is not rebuilt, and then he's going to have to continue to rebuild it month after month after month after month, till where this guy fully trusts him, so that the trust portion of every future sales meeting becomes shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and deeper and deeper. Okay? So you have to have this kind of focus on establishing and reestablishing trust, even when there is a personnel change, and because that's going to happen all the time. So you have to reestablish your trust as the people change on both sides of the deal. Okay? Yeah.
When you talk about the sales process, from your experience, can you actually explain certain nuances when the client actually is the government, especially in certain cases where the process can lead to an RFP and your selection criteria post technical can get to an L1 basis?
Yeah, so actually, it's interesting that, RFP is the most misunderstood transaction by amateur companies, by amateur startups or amateur companies, because in an RFP, most amateur companies think that it's a totally fair process where trust and relationship and other things don't matter. And actually, most people who fill out RFPs are actually what we call cannon fodder. So they are there just to justify the guy who's already done a successful job in selling the deal already. So typically, not typically, almost 100% of the time, the guy who did the selling and to actually win the deal essentially uses the RFP so that his deal is actually justified. You see what I'm saying? So somebody already sold the deal, right? It's like when I did the Louis Vuitton deal, right? The deal was already sold because, what is the CIO going to do? He cannot go ahead and bypass what the CEO said, right? The CEO of this $5 billion company is not going to change his mind, right? But basically, like, the CIO has to justify why he released a $4 million PO. So he's going to have to write a RFP document, send it out to 5 or 6 other configuration companies who are saying, oh, wow, Louis Vuitton needs a configurator. Everybody fills it out, but the deal automatically goes to Selectica because Selectica is the one that did the sales process. The other people are just, justification for the deal, and they file it away and they award the deal to Selectica, right? So, and then Selectica is the one that negotiates, whatever has to be negotiated, and then boom, it's done. And that's how every government RFP is done, every corporate RFP is done. You never ever win an unsolicited RFP that comes into your company. Did you guys understand that? So responding to an RFP is the biggest waste of time that any company can do. If you were not involved in generating the RFP that you'll fill out, you will actually be wasting your time. But there is still one more use of RFP that I'm going to talk about. So there is a benefit to an RFP also, but I'll explain that in a minute. But you have a question, go ahead.
Raj, your dining structure is extremely helpful, thanks. My question is related to the trusting relationship aspect of the factor. My experience, and I'm sure a lot of people will have the similar observation, to build a trusting relationship, the informal channel, the personal touch, especially in B2B one-to-one space, is very critical.
In any sales transaction, I don't want to limit it to B2B, okay?
Okay. So to build this trusting relationship, the personal touch, where if you're selling, let's say, to another company, the buyer on the other side, if you have similar beliefs, similar interests, that just helps build. In today's era, do you think this is losing significance because of the other medium through which sales are made, the digital channels, and also the fact that the decision makers don't have time? Instead of one-to-one, you do one-to-many sales, you go make a presentation to a boardroom, and that's how the sales gets closed. So is it losing significance? And if not, how can we build it to our advantage?
Very good question. So the thing to realize is that this selling cycle has been existing for 1,000 years. And it's not going away no matter how much technology comes into the world. I think you first need to believe this, that, it's people who buy products, companies don't buy products. Even when you're selling to, selling in a boardroom to 10 people, in reality, what happens is that those 10 people can actually be broken out into those 5 categories that I talked about in the previous slide. The economic buyer, decision maker, user, person that does testing, qualification, somebody who, so those 5 categories of people will be there in that boardroom. Now, each of them is going to impact the transaction in some way. But if you don't know who is what, you will not go ahead and address them properly. For example, whenever I used to sell, big deals to NEC, Hitachi, Toshiba, whoever, multi-million-dollar deals, right? To Japanese people. The guy who's, sitting at the back quietly, does not even ask a question, does not even show any interest, just looks and listens, that guy is the most important guy in the meeting. He's the decision maker. And everybody else will be jumping around, asking questions, the technical guys and the marketing guys and so on, but they are inconsequential. They don't mean anything, what they say. Because the guy who's the decision maker is just quietly making up his mind whether he trusts you, whether he wants to do business with you, whether he thinks you will work well with his team, whether you're going to be a long-term partner, whatever. So at some point in the meeting, when you address, why you are a dependable, responsible, trustable, sustainable, long-term strategic partner of NEC, Toshiba, Hitachi, Mitsubishi, whatever, when you give that message, you have to look straight at that key decision maker, the guy who never opened his mouth, and connect with him. And when you say that, this is why we would love to be your partner, why we want to be your partner in this business. And then when can we go ahead with the business? And then, you ask that question because you don't pay attention to anybody around you. You ask that question to that guy, and then you have to keep shut, because for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, nobody says anything. And if you're an amateur doing business in Japan, you cannot keep quiet yourself, and you just start talking. You'll say that, not only will we be strategic, but, we will do something more. We'll do this. And guess what? Suddenly you'll find that this guy who's the key decision maker gets up from the meeting and walks away. And guess what? The deal is lost. It's gone. It doesn't matter what the other guys say in the meeting, but the business is gone. Because when you made your final pitch, communicating why, you have to be patient to wait for that key decision maker to give the answer, And when he sees that, you will ask a question and then you'll just keep quiet, sometimes for 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. And then he gets a lot of respect for you because you understand that he's the decision guy. He's the guy. You understand Japanese philosophy. You've spent the time to understand Japanese culture. And, he says, yes, we will go ahead and do we want to do business with you. When can you deliver the product? And then you say, then you go ahead and, and then he might even say, I'm inviting you for dinner or whatever. So when that happens, you know that you're on your way to winning a long-term, successful, profitable business. So all I'm trying to say is that, you might think that the business might be changing, but it really does not change. Some of the details might change here and there, but those details are affected by a lot of things, like as I said, ethnicity. In India, if you're selling, different ethnicities, if you're selling abroad, every culture has its own business practices. What is important in Japan is very different than what is important in Taiwan, different than what is important in India to Arab countries, whatever. So you have to basically go ahead and realize that this process is not going to change. The details about how the process flows might change, and you have to, find the right salespeople who understand the Japanese process. And you, as CEO or founder, needs to be sensitive to applying this process and teaching your people. Even more important, why did I say that the founder needs to do the first sale? In fact, the first bunch of sales, because only the founder, if the founder does not understand this 5-step process, there's no way that the company, he's going to be able to choose the right salespeople, train the right salespeople in the right way, train his whole marketing organization, customer support organization to basically provide a winning execution of this selling process. Okay? Yeah. Okay, anything else?
Talking about trust, on the other side, when we build alliances and partnerships, we build trust there, it's too long. How do you share your revenues with them?
How to do a sales process with partners, business partners?
Yeah, and alliances. And how do you share the profits with them?
Yeah, that's a very important transaction that all companies have to make these days, because nobody. I'm going to mute you guys. So. Oh, I'm muting and you're unmuting. Okay, so this is something that is very important these days, because as you saw in the BMC and everything, nobody makes everything. So you need to have partnerships with your vendors, with your partners who do different aspects of it. Like Cheeky Chunk had partnership with the graphic designer, with the umbrella manufacturer, with the e-commerce platform. Look at how many important partnerships he had, right? So everybody's got partnerships. Doesn't matter whether you're a small company, big company, large startup company, late stage company, doesn't matter what. And, with each of them, you have to do a transaction. Like, clearly the umbrella manufacturer knows that he's buying the umbrellas from the umbrella manufacturer for, I think, 190 or 200 rupees, and he can go to Amazon and see the same umbrella that he's sent to Cheeky Chunk being sold for 675 rupees, right? So the umbrella manufacturer can see how much profit Cheeky Chunk is making. There's no secret. And the guy's saying that I'm making you the umbrellas. I'm making 10 rupees profit. I've got, a factory. I've got machines. I've got employees. I've got to pay their vacation pay and this pay and that pay. And I've got to have a cafeteria, and I've got to do all of this stuff. And I make 10 rupees profit for each umbrella I ship. And you're making 475 rupees profit. So these days, negotiations with your vendors, with your partners, is extremely important, because with each transaction, you don't want a short-term relationship. Like Cheeky Chunk cannot be really tough on the umbrella manufacturer and say, no, it's 200 rupees and that's all I can pay you, because, we signed the contract and he can't take that position. He's got to communicate the economic logic to the umbrella manufacturer and say, look, this year I'm going to buy 20,000 umbrellas and you're going to make 10 rupees profit. So you're making 2 lakh rupees profit from your umbrellas. And I'm going to guarantee you that, you know, I'll increase the capacity, the production next year by another 50%, and you're going to make 3 lakhs profit. And you know, so you get him away from the 10 rupees to, you know, understanding that he's making 2 lakhs without having to do any selling. He doesn't have a sales cost. He doesn't have support cost. He doesn't have returns cost. He doesn't have, you know, competition. He doesn't have inventory problems. So you can communicate to your manufacturer, to the umbrella manufacturer, why that 2 lakh rupees is very good economic logic for him. You know, the same way, you know, it doesn't matter who your alliance is, who your partner is, you have to communicate the economic logic, why they should do, why it's a win-win agreement, you know, for both parties on every transaction. Okay, so the key is that, you know, you need to have, with the umbrella manufacturer or with your alliance partner, you've got to have the trust. You got to know the process, then the value, options, and then the economic logic has to be communicated with every alliance partner. So you need to understand what are the key drivers for your alliance or partner. What is it from his angle, right? From the manufacturer's angle, you know, he needs to keep his factory running. He needs to have advance notice. He needs to get, you know, so he needs to, you know, what happens if his business goes up and down? The manufacturing goes up and down. He cannot, you know, fire all his workers, you know, one day, next day he brings them back to work. You know, he wants consistent orders are coming in so that, you know, he can keep his people busy. So basically, like with every partner or alliance, you need to understand what is important to them. What are the drivers for their business? And then you got to communicate why you are addressing their needs the best way possible. Correct? Okay. Okay, so shall we take a 5-minute break and then we'll continue? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.